What is going on, fellow Wastelanders? Welcome back to the channel. Shock Radio here. Today we're going over the latest news from CROSSOUT, and that is the Cabin Fusion Parts Upgrade event, as well as the latest from the developer team answers for the question and answer session about balance in CROSSOUT. So we're going to get started today with this cabin fusion event. Now they give you a list of cabins that you can fuse, 2 cabins to fuse 1 cabin for 2 days and 20 hours. So we're going to talk about the cabins that you cannot fuse, and then for those of you guys that are kind of new to this event, give you some tips on fusing cabins to make the most of this event. So they give you a ton of cabins that you can fuse, but they do say during this event certain parts can be upgraded, lower parts. So what do they mean, certain parts? Well, cabins that are in these event passes and battle passes like the cohort, the bastion, the quantum cabin are not available to fuse during this upgrade event. That also includes cabins like the whaler cabin if you wanted to fuse that one, jawbreaker, Yanabi, any cabins in these battle passes. Oh yeah, the BWC warrior as well. You cannot fuse during this upgrade event over the next few days. Now, interesting to note, you can fuse the new Inferno cabin, so if you want to get that one fused, it is a perfect time to fuse the Inferno cabin, which I guess they kind of release these cabin fusion events usually when they release a brand new pack item cabin. Like the last time, I guess they had the beacon, right? They released the beacon, then they had a cabin fuse event. Anyway, I digress. Alright guys, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can make the most of this event, and also some market trends that happen when these events come out. So like, take the example of me being very ill-equipped and unprepared for this event. Is I have this cockpit cabin that the only good thing about it is really the power fusion. The built-in radar radius, nope, you need max speed. The resistance all damage, well, durability is more OP. So if I was to be prepared, which to be prepared for these events, you need to buy cabins in advance, because right now things like the cockpit cabin have spiked massively in price, just already doubled in price compared to what they were yesterday. 700 coin on PlayStation, well, they've already doubled in price. So yeah, if you have the cabins, you can make coin or you can fuse them. If you want to fuse your cabins and get the most of it, use your stabilizer. So like I said, the only good thing about this cabin is the power. I really need durability and max speed. So honestly, what I'm going to do is lock power so I can re-roll these two. But to be honest with you, that'll still be really random. And the most important fusion of this cabin is honestly going to be the durability. So I really would want to lock both of these fusions right here. That way I would have a 50% chance of getting durability, versus like if I unlocked this, I don't know what the hell kind of chance. I probably have like a 1 in 9 chance or something ridiculous like that of getting durability if I were to leave these two unlocked. So if you want to change one particular fusion, now is the time to use these stabilizers. Lock 2 of the perks that you either want to keep permanently or you don't really, not as relevant, and then re-roll the 3rd perk that you need to change. Now, of course, if you want to get stabilizers, you can craft stabilizers in the engineer workbench to stabilize your cabin fusions. And you get stabilizers, if you guys didn't know, I'm sure you guys do though, by these lead engineer containers. You open these containers, you get these containers from leveling up your faction's prestige level. So after you hit level 30 engineers, level 30 lunatics, you get these stabilizers to use during these events. Now, fun fact to note about stabilizers that I do want to point out, if you, I can't actually show you trade. Sometimes these are available for trade, and they go up in price drastically or down in price depending on when they're available to buy and sell. So keep a lookout for that in the future. All right, so moving on to the latest answers from the developers question and answer session that they had in Discord a week or 2 ago. This is going to take a while, so I appreciate everyone who's going to watch this video fully through. If you want to just leave this video play in the background, honestly, the best way to support long-form videos like this is to get the average watch time up on YouTube, so it's recommended to more people. So thank you guys for watching the content. I'm going to go over all these questions and answers here, and then give my feedback on most of them. Just going to react to the latest questions and answers from the developers. So right now, Ripper is not playable in Clan Wars and on high power score. In its current form, Ripper is not playable at all. A mine layer that does does not do damage with mines is a bit illogical. I propose to give the opportunity to use the Tormentor module, 70% damage boost for a period of time, increase flight speed, so that there's an opportunity to effectively spend free energy. Their answer was, we agree that the efficiency of the Ripper is insufficient. We cannot change the interaction of discs stuck in the ground with wheels at the moment due to technical reasons. We like your suggestion on the interaction of the Tormentor module with this weapon, and we will try to implement and test it, as well as increasing the ram damage of a stuck disc in one of the next planned balance changes. So I love that there is a bit of transparency here. The latest Q&A sessions from the developers have been absolutely awesome. Whether they haven't given us enough answers or not, they have been really awesome. So I love the fact that they're actually kind of preparing us, saying, hey, we're going to be probably increasing the ram damage of a stuck disc in one of the next planned balance changes. So let me take my Ripper off the market real quick on PlayStation. All right, anyways, now that my Ripper is back in my storage, unplayable relics, Ripper, Typhoon, Firebug, Porcupine, Punisher, Jormungandr. Why does the balance department ignore the problems in the relic segment for whole months, years? What? Is this person saying Rippers, Typhoons, all these are not playable? Because personally, I've been playing Firebug for literally years, and I just like it. It's always been reliable as just being there. I mean, Punishers have always been really good. Rippers are on every Leviathan. Jormungandr's on every Leviathan. Porcupines are maybe a bit mid from what I've seen, in my opinion. Okay, of course, you guys know how I feel about the Typhoon being really bad, but there is like this little sliver of like meta that the Typhoon holds, so I don't know. What is the developer answers, though? Thank you for such detailed comment. We'll answer in order. Ripper, see the previous answer. Typhoon, the weapon itself has a fair amount of efficiency at the moment. We know it's relatively unpopular, but changing one enemy weakening perk to another isn't going to make a difference. We have plans to change the perk from one weakening enemies to increasing the damage dealt by the weapon itself. Damn, so they're going to change the perk of the Typhoon? That's going to be pretty nice. That's going to be good. They changed the perk before, and that's kind of what killed it. So, I mean, this is going to be absolutely awesome. And getting an increase in damage, some type of perk for damage for the Typhoon, that'd be nuts. Firebug, we will test the changes to the range and flamethrower jet speed, but it should be noted that the parameters still will be lowered than those of the Scotty. Please give me more range on my Firebug. I only say this because I have them fused for range, and they killed my range fusion when they introduced the thermal heat effect fusion or whatever. Because now, like, a range fused Firebug is absolutely trash. It's garbage. I need to refuse Firebugs at this point, just to be extra. Anyway, Porcupine, after changes to hovers in the weapon itself, its popularity has decreased but still remains at a fairly high level, as well as efficiency. There are no plans to cancel previous changes at this time, so they're basically saying they're watching the Porcupine situation, it sounds like. Punisher, changes to this weapon will be considered after the release of the latest announced changes for hit scan weapons and the collision of relevant efficiency data. So they're going to also collect more data for Punishers. Right now, they don't have solid Punisher data to go on. It sounds like they're going to go through with the hit scan change. They just how much they're going to go through with the penetration and all that stuff and ammo, all that. Yeah, I think that stuff might change, but the hit scan is definitely happening. Jormungandr, your proposed changes for this weapon only would look inappropriate in view of the whole branch of a single shot shotguns. As with the announced cannon changes, we will consider changing all such shotguns in the future. I am a bit confused about this because I only seen like part of the question. So, like, part of this is like, where's the other part of the question? But anyway, we'll move on. The next question. Due to the current way of how builds behave on contact, melee builds are overly effective, since the build that is pushed in melee combat is completely unable to move anywhere except in direction of the push. Their answer, we are aware of this problem. Unfortunately, at the moment, we have no solutions that don't entail a global redesign of the physics of builds, interaction, and control, but we will try to find them. So, they're actually admitting that they know their flaws in the game, but they're having trouble. They're having trouble here. They're like, we're just having trouble balancing without changing a lot of stuff. And this is true, man. When you change one thing in a game that's it's such a sandbox style game, CrossOUT is, you can just have unforeseen consequences of just trickle effect of changing all kinds of things. So changing physics could be a massive change to the game for sure. I could see that. Low efficiency of the Kami cabin. The perk of this cabin is too narrowly focused, weak, and ineffective compared to the perks of other epic and legendary rarity cabins. Their answer is, as part of one of the next balance changes, we will try to improve the perk according to your first suggestion on cables and revise the perk's duration and reload time. Yeah, they're definitely not giving us the whole question, because I don't. What are we talking about? The suggestional cables? They're just giving the question. They're not giving the whole questions here. So this, I'm missing a bit of context to their answers. So. Next question. The speed boost from engines to heavy cabins is too high. Recently, there's been a problem with the brick builds that use heavy cabins, have a lot of durability, at the same time have inadequately high speed by the standards of heavy builds. Their answer is they're aware of the speed inflation issue, which is exacerbated as new parts and mechanics are added. We have plans to comprehensively rework both base speeds and speed bonuses acquired from various sources. Your solution overlaps with ours in part, but does not address all the issues we'd like to resolve. We are planning these changes next year. So next year they're going to be addressing the brick speed issues. So keep a lookout for that. Question. Oh man, this is a pretty funny question, guys. Augers. This movement part is superior to every single one in the game, to hovers to legs, not to mention Omni and others. I can't believe augers have been trash for almost as long as I've been playing the game. 7 years. Basically, augers are garbage. This is my answer, guys. This is my answer, not the dev's answer. Augers have been garbage for like 7 years. They have their like niche, their creative builds. Sometimes they're usable, but for the most part, they've been bad. What do the devs have to say? Oh yeah, and give augers their moment in the sun. That's my final take. Give augers their moment in the sun, please. The same as omnis. Yeah, omnis had their big moment in the sun. You know, we all get our moment in the sun. Their answer: for the first time in a long time, meat grinders become a competitive movement part. Yes, indeed. We do not plan to weaken the parameters of the movement part itself, but in the next update, we will remove the influence of bonuses from other parts on its damage. If this is not enough, we will consider additional changes. So I guess they're going to change like the Mars cabin, buffing the damage of the meat grinder legs. Or it could be like, does the Tormentor work with meat grinders or augers? Would they nerf like the Tormentor effect on meat grinders to balance the meat grinders? Something like that. That could be interesting to see in the future. Another question. In my opinion, the latest balance change of the Taki perk was disastrous for this weapon. Due to the complete rework of the perk, the weapon is almost never seen in battle, as the damage has been cut down quite a bit. Statistically, Tachi is currently at a medium level and does not require changes. Compared to the excessive efficiency previously, the weapon is now used as originally intended. I'd like to see some statistics, Tarjan. Where's these stats at? Let's go. Let's see some stats. But yeah, apparently they've got the Tachi where they want them statistically. We don't know the stats or where that is, but they have them where they want them. Question. The problem. Hitting Grav Stars on heavy builds. High efficiency and difficult to shoot them off. Answer. Grav Star efficiency is at medium level no matter where it is mounted. We have no plans to make changes in the near future. So they're skipping out on Grav Stars for a while. So if you love Grav Stars right now, ride it out, baby. They're here to stay for a bit. Question. Spider legs are dead. It's almost impossible to play them in Clan Wars unless you're watching Louis G on YouTube. Almost any wheel build with medium heavy cabins will push over a spider, or neither spider nor wheel build can push the other one. Answer. We are aware of the decline in popularity of mechanical legs in Clan Wars, but it has remained at a sufficient level in other game modes. We have no plans to make changes until we make their direct opponents more friendly. So until they buff other movement parts, they're not going to mess with spiders. Interesting. Is that what I'm reading right? Question. A low efficiency of the tackler. Hard times require changes in the perks of weapons that are not popular and not effective. I think this machine gun is low popularity among players and show unsatisfactory results in battle. Answer. First, we will gather statistical data after the changes announced for hit scan weapons, and then we will plan additional changes. The problem with long activation time of the perk will be addressed in one of the future balance changes. Let me go ahead and put some bids up on that tackler real quick. Alright, next question. The MLs are significantly inferior to Bigfoots and Titans in terms of durability and traction. Bigrams at 45 kilometers per hour are significantly less maneuverable than hovers after rebalance, as well as easily pushed over by even medium vehicles. Answer. We don't plan to make changes to mechanical legs in the near future. We would like to make some comments on the parameters of mechanical legs themselves. Their mass values are reflective of the fact that they act as side armor and defend the space below the frame level, as well as increase the height of armored car for more convenient shooting at enemies with other movement parts. I will agree with that. If I try to like use my Firebug build, for example, on any kind of ML legs that have ML legs all the way around them, I get ramped, dude. I cannot. I just get ramped, pushed, and I mean, it's a very like niche build that does this, but it is kind of true. They do protect around the builds very well. ML200 has sufficient traction. The Bigram has a reduced traction parameter due to the fact that it has 2 modes of operation and is more versatile. We do not plan to change the parameters of power consumption because there are builds with a different number of these movement parts. Alright, so I finally decided to give into that giant notification and switch over to the new website, which actually has smaller text, a little bit harder to read, but it does look way better. Next question, the leg survivability against flame weapons. Legs cannot compete with Dracos and Firebugs. At the moment, we have no plans to increase the rotation speed of mechanical legs around the radial axis, but we will consider adding damage resistance to fire in a future update. Oh, man. Oh, brother, I hope not. I hope not. For the sake of my Firebugs. Long live the Firebugs. That's actually a good answer, though. Honestly, giving legs fire resistance so that Firebugs can't just chew right through the legs. It is, I mean, it is very easy as a Firebug player to just chew a hole into the side of a Bigrim leg build and just, you're stuck. You get through 1 or 2 of those side legs and then you are in their build. It's very, very nice for me being a Firebug, but obviously not for them being leg builds. So that would definitely help them survive a little bit longer to give them more time to like push the Firebug into a wall, because when you're using a leg build against a dog build, you need to use the terrain to your advantage. Teamwork and just that extra couple seconds of survivability would make a huge difference fighting dogs for sure. Question, Bigrams and Gyarados have low tonnage given their mass. We will look into increasing the tonnage of mechanical legs in one of the future balance changes. This may require changes to other parameters of these movement parts. The next question, active melee weapons lose in efficiency to bullet weapons when used in contact battle. Most weapons that can be placed under the cabin or in a bunker for point blank shooting will be more effective than saws. Answer, your proposal makes melee weapons absolute best in contact fights with the enemy, completely removing the ability to counter these types of builds. At the moment, we will gradually making changes to the weapons that can be placed under the cabin. If other weapons show increased efficiency when mounted this way, we will make changes to them as well. So again, we're missing context on a lot of these questions, like to see what these user suggestions are. We're just seeing the base questions. Question, uselessness of the most turquoise modules compared to their purple counterparts. Excessive efficiency of some legendary modules compared to their purple counterparts. We looked at your proposed concept of tying energy consumption to part rarity when we were reworking the energy system in the game. Based on testing and player feedback, we moved away from hardwiring energy to rarity and decided to approach each module category individually. Regarding the Chameleon and Maxwell special modules, we tested changing energy consumption to 1 point in conjunction with reducing parameters, but concluded that even a significant weakening leaves them too effective for such low energy consumption. We are closely monitoring the statistics of these modules and the number of times they've been used in battle. At the moment, these modules are more popular at levels below 8,000 power score than their epic counterparts. So I actually like how they included a little bit of stats here for like the first time I've seen. They gave some type of stat, like they are more popular below 8,000 or something. There's some type of reference, you know, which I like that. Overall, I do actually like the whole question and answer session in general, just being a bit more transparent about things. Question, ram damage, because there are cases when heavy builds end battles without weapons, dealing 500 to 700 yellow damage. We have no plans to set strict limits on ram damage at the moment. There are not many complaints about its efficiency. If the problem you mentioned becomes more prevalent, we will reduce the effect of armored cars mass on damage values. So not changing the base cabin ram damage. Question, low survivability of Reapers. Dependency on tracks and rolling based movement parts on Golden Eagle. Reapers imply using them on short range, medium heavy builds, which consequently have sufficient survivability, whereas Reapers themselves lack sufficient survivability in the current circumstances, especially when compared to their purple and relic counterparts. We will consider increasing the durability of Reaper in one of the future balance changes, but only in conjunction with increasing its mass. The multiple increase in durability of the Devourer relative to the Reaper is due to its size. Regarding the Golden Eagle, currently most builds with tracks, augers, and rolling base movement parts use other engines than the Golden Eagle. The builds that do use it have less efficiency. Based on this data, these movement parts do not need the maximum speed from the engine perk. We will consider reworking the engine's perk or adding a new one, as we did with the oppressor in the announced balance change. It's actually really cool. So potentially a future change to the Golden Eagle engine. Next question, the Stillwind and Whirlwind are weak. They consume 10 energy, so 2 of either will be too weak in damage but require a lot of extra energy. If you have 3, damage is adequate, but there is no energy left for anything but a radiator, and Stillwind perk is useless. Meanwhile, all power nodes of modules and cabins are only suitable for 2 weapons. I think the Stillwind was meant to be with the Beholder cabin. That's my answer. Just use the Beholder. Their answer, these autocannons are statistically medium and do not require any changes to their parameters. We will consider changing or replacing the AC-80 Stillwind perk with a more appropriate one. Your proposal to increase power consumption will affect those who use 3 upgraded and will make it impossible to mount them on an armored car, so we will not consider this option. So that's really nice of them. They're thinking of those that have 3 of these, probably because they don't want to refund you. Okay. They don't want to refund you. But yeah, they're thinking of us. They're like, nah, you guys got 3 Stillwinds. We can't change that. Question, balance of Omnis and Atoms. Unplayability of these movement parts. Currently, Omni are extremely bad after the last 2 nerfs. The popularity of Omni in PvP battles is at a high level across a wide range of power score, and we have no plans to make changes to these parameters. We will consider changes to the Atom separately from the Omni. Regarding number of parts we see, Omni is a good part for light armored cars with 4 movement parts. For heavier ones, there are Atom and Meat Grinder. So no plans for changing Omni at the moment. Finwhale engine gives 2 big speed bonus to wheel builds with heavy cabins, while this boost is not so important for builds with medium and light cabins. At the moment, we have no plans to introduce fixed engine bonuses based on cabin class. As we answered earlier, we have plans to completely rework speed and bonuses next year. Oh, that's scary. I'm scared. Question. Punishers, Typhoons, Porcupines, Ripper, and Flash are significantly worse than other relics in terms of parameters. Upgraded legendary counterparts are often useful more than 10 times more than these expensive relics. We discussed most of the relics in the answer above. The Flash is as good as its legendary counterpart. In general, Tesla emitters are more of an auxiliary weapon. We do not plan to make them independent. Usability and efficiency of auxiliary weapons depend on the meta. They can show low efficiency in the current one and be very successful in the next. So they're kind of chilling with the Flash and the Sparks. They don't really want people running 3 Flashes or 3 Sparks and being OP. It sounds like they just want you to pair your 1 Flash and a Firebug, or 1 Flash with a brick or something like that. They don't want you to go all out with the zappy zaps and things like that. Mars nerf. Why nerf Mars cabin if it was not much better than Humpback when it was introduced into the game, and now it will be even worse? Their answer, it is wrong to compare this cabin with the Humpback solely on the basis of damage bonus. Such an approach would be appropriate if their mechanics were the same. Mars has switchable activation, which doesn't force it to take damage, and also increases ally efficiency. Statistically, Mars has high efficiency relative to the entire class of heavy cabins, so changes to this parameter is reasonable. I agree with that. The Mars is more of a team-based cabin perk. I mean, you're affecting your whole team. You're giving yourself a damage buff. I mean, how often are we're playing Levy Wars, and you know, one of the ad players like got perk for Levy, and then next thing you know, that Levy's doing mass amounts of damage. So yeah, Mars is definitely a team-based cabin. Question, active melee weapons fall off when used for its main purpose of contacting a target. Answer, this class of weapons already has resistances to both blast damage and ram damage. Their survivability is at a sufficient level. Increase the damage resistance to ram damage to 100% will allow saws to deal ram damage without receiving it in return. This goes against the concept of ram damage in the game. The lack of explosion when the blast damage module is destroyed by melee damage seems like an excessive game convention and is not required for this class of weapons. Together with your previous proposal, if we understand correctly, you want to make armor cars with melee weapons generally invulnerable in close combat, which is unacceptable for game balance. Fair? Maybe increasing some of the resistances instead of making them invulnerable. I don't know. Or maybe giving the ram damages like a little bit of bullet resistance as well. Giving them a little bit of other resistances on top of the melee and the blast. Maybe something like that. I don't know. Like the saws especially. the presence of a long and stable meta, as well as bottom weapons which really stand out among all other weapons. One weapon in battle is seen too often and players show a naturally good result with it, regardless of skill and vehicle build. You need to make balance changes more often. Wait, what? What? Did this guy just say they need to make balance changes more often? How much news do you need me to produce? You want me to make a news video every day? Answer: we have no plans to significantly increase the frequency of balance changes. Gathering statistical data, designing changes, and their initial testing takes time and cannot be done in 1 week. That'd be crazy if they wanted one every week a balance change. That'd be nuts. Question: clarinet toe, very high efficiency for a purple weapon. Are we really complaining about things like clarinet toes and augers, guys, right now? They finally are good. What are we doing here? Question: as we answered earlier, the situation with clarinet toe is similar to augers. Yes, devs, yes. I feel like I'm one with the devs right now. That's not good. That's not good, Shock. Get out. Shock needs to go touch some grass. After a long time in the game, it was finally able to show competitive efficiency. The popularity of this weapon is due to its unique playstyle. Its efficiency is at a medium level. It does a lot of damage, but due to the lack of ability to move the projectile in the vertical plane, the damage mainly concentrates on the frames and wheels, which does not contribute to the effective destruction of most types of armored cars. Countering the clarinet toe is not difficult. Its rockets are quite visible, have low speed and durability, and the armored car itself is defenseless in close range or while controlling the projectile. Funny. Question: 2 radical changes to values in balance changes. That's really interesting. Someone just said they want more balance changes. This person said they want less radical balance changes. Because it leads to one narrowly focused meta, one thing stands out. Everyone plays only with that. You need to change the parameters of parts gradually, in increments of 5-7% in total, and see how it affects the game. Answer: given the frequency of balance changes, such percentages and numbers are acceptable. Not every change is reflected in a significant numerical value shift, but all of them are justified, taking into account statistics and internal testing. Question: nail guns weak and unpopular because of the difficulty in implementing their mechanic, especially Sumator. There is a feeling that after the recently announced balance changes, nail guns may go into complete oblivion. We will consider improvements to this weapons class in one of the future balance changes. So adding the nail gun to a list of items that are going to be looked at in the next round of balance changes. Question: balance problem bricks. Why is it a problem? Unstoppable, fast-moving meat army leaves little room for the gameplay that everyone is used to and love, namely tactical battles, counter peaks at the draft stage. All this has disappeared in most cases. The solution is to buff cap cans. They have no plans to improve the parameters of cap cans at the moment. We are satisfied with its efficiency. We already talked about the speed of heavy builds above. Question: greetings. I want to raise a question about the balance of assembler and its meaning in our game. It seems, and not so long ago, there was a small revamp of this weapon, as well as a subsequent hotfix. In the end, I think that the result was ambiguous, and in fact, did not change anything in favor of the assembler. I have no idea how to fix this, since you cannot raise DPS for assembler. Other cannons have flywheel cyclops. I suggest to give it additional 13th energy and upgrade parameters accordingly. A good example would be the Varun crossbow, which by the way is very similar, even more in spirit, to the assembler than the Astrius. In the end, we'll have a weapon that firstly cannot be played on medium power score because of energy, and secondly has a chance for a good use in higher power score, even clan wars. Thank you for your suggestion. We'll consider options for its implementation and test them in one of the future balance changes. So they're taking this feedback and they're going to actually use it. It sounds like that was an idea for them. Like literally, they just had an idea. Like, okay, that's a good idea. We're going to test it out. I love this. We need more of this in CROSSOUT. I love it. Question: Raijin is too strong a cannon, and its strength is in its versatility. It's purple, meaning it doesn't have much power score. It's not very big. It's as durable as a kaiju. That said, its perk raises its survivability, and the perk is easy to implement. It has very high damage. A volley with full charge does as much damage as a mortar. Again, this is a purple weapon, and it reloads quickly. The perk also boosts damage. It has too much penetration ability and too much splash. This cannon doesn't need players to know how to play with it. You just hit any place on an enemy car with a full charge, and half of them is gone. Like Mortar, but stronger. At the moment, we are aware of the high efficiency of the Raijin weapon. Your proposal to change its rarity cannot be implemented. If the previously announced changes are not enough, we will considering reducing the ammunition as an additional measure. So the next change they might consider for the Raijin is lowering the ammo. That's very interesting to note. Taking notes. Take notes, boys. We're taking notes of future balance changes here. Question: a blast damage boost in comparison to other types of damage boost. Consider the situation. A Mars Cabin perk gives 30% of damage. If we use it on a build with a weapon that deals blast damage, we will get bigger DPS boost than on a build with a weapon that deals another type of damage. This is best seen in raids when players use Catalina and Retcher do many times more damage than other players, and it's not even a matter of skill or designing good builds. The solution of this problem is to reduce the damage bonus for blast damage weapon. For example, the Mars will increase blast damage by 50%, 15%, and all other types of damage by 30% when the perk is activated. So they're trying to like nerf that Catalina in raids. At the moment, we don't plan to make changes that include different bonuses per damage types. We have plans for a big rework of blast damage in general, but we can't share details at this moment. So they're going to be reworking cannons again? What are they going to do? Question: oppressor engine perk problem. I think the perk in the current realities of the game is fine, but after reading the plan changes, I disagree with one point. Adding the dependence of projectile speed on the vehicle speed is not right, because then at different speeds you will need to lead the shot differently. That is, if you accelerate by 1 kilometer, you will need to recalculate your shot. That's nonsense. You shouldn't do that. It will just mess up the aiming. The solution to the problem can be not adding this perk to the game or using it as will. For example, you can make an engine mode switch like the Omnibox cabin. In one mode, the oppressor speeds up the turn. In the other, it boosts the speed of the projectile. The oppressor perk, their answer here. The oppressor perk is mostly used to the full extent, and the bonus itself slightly increases the projectile's flight speed to make it uncomfortable to shoot with or without it. Please test this change on the test server this weekend. Question: active melee weapons cannot always deal melee damage. Very often, the target can escape without problems due to excessive maneuverability when driving into their side or back. Increase phantom melee damage pins to all melee weapons like Charybdis with its perk. Charybdis themselves should get an extra phantom pin when a saw has no collision but still gets into a part and does damage behind it. Or saw can sink in the same way as a grinder from the range does. It attracts what it contacts. Their answer, which I kind of agree with, it is very difficult to use like borers and things. You get like stuck into a build and you're doing nothing. Currently, melee weapons have enough efficiency and good performance on medium power score levels. We have no plan to change the damage mechanics of this weapon. So no changes there. Question: low gravity and low traction of all builds in the game. A spider build weighing 25 to 30 tons can be pushed around by smooth round wheels. Raise its front and even flip it if there is a wall. Cars of 20 to 25 tons jump around, fly up in the air like plushies, and drive onto each other's roofs. That's not normal. Don't touch speed. Increase the gravity by 2 times for all builds and remove the ice from the ground. Your proposition affects a large part of the game physics and require extensive changes. We have no plans for such a redesign at this time, but we will consider it as an option to improve the game in the future. We have already spoke about the mechanical legs traction above. Question: too much durability and at the same time high speed of the wheels tighten in the so-called brick builds. Builds with this movement part are imbalanced and have a number of advantages. High survivability, a lot of HP for the cabin and the movement part. The Titan, high speed with high HP. Speed is 80 to 90 kilometers. Reduce the speed for wheels with heavy cabins and reduce the hit points of the Titan, or make it so that the builds will be slower with those wheels. We answered the question about the speeds of heavy builds above, so they plan on, again, reworking all the speeds and things like that in a future balance change. The parameters of the Titan are medium and do not stand out relative to other movement parts. We don't plan to make any changes to their parameters at the moment, nor do we plan to limit maximum speed for the wheels. I actually really like the fact that there's like an insanely durable wheels. When I first seen Titan, I'm not gonna lie guys, I wasn't impressed, but I was like, I'm not impressed by a wheel in the Wasteland. But the Titan has turned out to be really good. Question: efficiency of heavy legs. They're not useful enough in battle. I propose to introduce melee damage in the animation of lowering the legs in some radius from the leg itself and make it scale according to the weight of the legs. We answered earlier, the efficiency of mechanical legs is at a medium level. We have no plans to implement your suggestion. Question: quite a large number of unplayable weapons, cabinet movement parts in the game. The game really has a lot of frankly weak and unpopular weapons, cabinet movement parts. Some were nerfed, some make no sense because every strong meta builds. Some have parameters completely incomparable to strong meta parts. The solution is trivial. Deal with the balance of these weakest parts more often rather than mindlessly nerfing. Balance changes contain not only parameters reductions but also quite a lot of rebalancing and improvements. Regarding the frequency of release of balance updates, we have already spoken about it above. Recent changes to add ammunition limit to all weapons. The problem is that you have to rebuild absolutely all builds for this. Lose the durability and add vulnerability to your custom build in the form of explosive ammo packs. Solution: increasing the base ammo packs blue and purple rarity, or increasing the ammunition of cannons and weapons that require ammo packs. In that case, ammo shortage situations will become less frequently. Answer: please wait until the test server opens, study the amount of base ammo packs for each weapon, and only then draw conclusions about the changes. The base values are set so the player has options of not mounting ammo packs for quick battle. So again, guys, we do have another round of testing coming up this Friday. I will be live Sunday. Of course, I'll be making videos Friday and Saturday for the test server, so leave comments about what you want to see tested this weekend. Question: sidekicks are unplayable. A few years ago, they have been nerfed into oblivion, and they continue to be unplayable. The main problem with absolutely any buffs, radars, co-drivers, cabins, and the drone AI does not understand where to shoot. Do the developers have an opportunity to technically make bots not dumb, or at least not too much? That's all they need. We will look into the problem of sidekick strange behavior and target locking. So not really addressing the bot issue there. They kind of skimmed over that answer. Making bots not dumb. Oh man. Question: the problem of raising builds. Most of the time, players try to raise up each other and shoot at point-blank range. Gassan and other iron are accidentally raising the build on contact to the side or rear. Vehicles should not act like inflatables or toys. I'm not fully understanding that question. Maybe I've been reading this too long, but your proposal will lead to the fact that builds will simply grate on the ground after losing some of the movement parts or completely lose the ability to move. Currently, a very small percentage of players mount parts so close to the ground that they hit it. So we don't plan to introduce additional checks at the point of building armored cars. We will consider changes to the collision of the plow blade and Gassan parts to reduce instances of them raising builds. So potentially changing a few of the wedgy parts so they're not so wedgy anymore, I guess, if I'm reading that right. Question: MLs, bigrams, Gyarados, hovers, and rolling base movement parts and their low utility relative to wheel meta. These movement parts have a number of problems that force players to opt for more meta options, which at the moment are Titans, Hermits, and other wheels. We responded earlier that we will consider changing the ML200 perk. Bigram and Gyarados, we previously responded that we will consider increasing their tonnage, but this may require additional changes. Icarus, 4 and 7s. At the moment, their popularity and efficiency has hardly decreased since the last changes. Their parameters are at a fairly high level, therefore we do not plan to improve them. And Omnis and Atoms they discussed above. The problem is designing a build. Because developers changed the essence of the game, you destroyed a lot of interesting solutions and ideas. People who assembled really cool builds. The most trivial example, yes, Young Wang's is imbalanced if placed at the bottom. So what? Why pry and change the way it can be mounted? Okay, I can't read that. Young Wang was that's a terrible example. Why would you use that as an example and say that things like that should be left in the game? Okay, the Young Wang was absolutely awful in Uranium battles, and I used it. Okay, it was the only playable thing, and I mean, actually, people eventually brought out the Spark and the machine gun hovers to counter it, but that was ridiculous. What is their answer? That's crazy. The Young Wang needed a nerf. I'm glad they did it. We are not against interesting and original solutions for building armored cars, but any combination design must remain in balance. Yes, the Young Wang was not balanced relative to other weapons, parts, and armored cars. Your Young Wang example was significantly out of statistical and reasonable efficiency limits. Yes, it was. When you have teams of 4 Young Wang, you shouldn't have whole teams of 1 build. You should honestly have a bunch of different builds that like complement each other. That should be balanced, not 4 or 3 even. 3 Young Wangs and 1 counter build. That's terrible. Ugh. Ugh. I can't wait. Anyway, low efficiency of the weapon enlightenment. The weapon itself is very rarely used and is the most useless in the game. Making a module. Increase energy drain from 1 to 2. Change the effect that shoots a beacon at the selected target. After attaching, the beacon reveals the aura of the player, illuminates them, as well as prohibits them from using invisibility. Module active time is 15 seconds with 30-second reloading, which can be accelerated with the cheetah engine. The aura of the enemy is also visible to allies. Perk can be left the same as it was before. They said, thank you, we will consider your suggestion. So they might actually change the enlightenment based on your users' comments. Question, Barrier 9 can't protect allies or myself properly. This part has interesting potential, giving the ability to briefly lay in cover with the ability to return fire. However, the shield is too weak. It still costs too much energy, weight, and space. It's not too much energy. We have no plans to create partial or full defense buffs inside the barrier radius or change survivability for blast damage. Barrier 9 currently has enough efficiency for its energy consumption. However, we will consider displaying the durability of the barrier when it's active. That's actually a cool idea. The FG aggregator generator is oversized for its rarity. Is not appropriate for builds up to 6,000 power score, while it was likely designed primarily for installation with the Docker and WWT cabins. Its size makes it difficult to integrate into builds with those cabins, especially when mounted on bottom. No plan changes for that generator. Wheel builds, even with light cabins, can drive under spider cabins, with Gyarados in particular, and can drag it along safely, depriving the spider of control. This leaves no way for the spider to fight off, while the wheel build only needs to press W. The solution is simple. Wheels must not move when a spider is on top of the build. The situation described happens very rarely, and in most cases, mechanical legs still have contact with the ground and the ability to maneuver. We do not plan to make changes. Question, Omnis and atoms slide like they're on ice. Because of low traction, these movements parts slide a lot. They oversteer. Big builds with Omnis or atoms can pushed by relatively light builds on wheels. You need to increase the traction of these. We will look at options to change the traction of these parts without changing other parameters in the case of the Omni movement part. That's actually pretty interesting. So they're just going to improve the traction of these wheels in the future. Many weapons are more convenient to use in a bunker. Players assemble boxes from all possible parts and hide weapons in them, which can rotate but lose the ability. We do not plan to make such changes. The problem is not encompassing for all movement parts and weapons, and such situations are too resource consuming, including in terms of game performance on different systems. Monopoly of wheels on speed. Many movement parts have a low limit of max speed, and that's not fair. We are currently testing increasing the speed limit of movement parts with Phobos and Co-Driver. Regarding Golden Eagle, we already discussed it above. When reworking its perk, we will consider your suggestion. Invisibility disruption. In the current state of the game, the invisibility turns off from any damage, so the values of this ability drops. I propose to make it more difficult to disrupt invisibility. For example, you need to do 300 damage to an invisible enemy to reveal them. So they're basically just complaining that they're getting decloaked too easily. Invisibility is a strong enough mechanic. We do not plan to make it easier to use. Bravo, devs. Question, even a heavy build on tracks can push a wheeled heavy medium build. Tracks should logically push over wheeled builds, and they are heavier and more expensive too. Increase pushing ability of tracks. After the recent changes, tracks are good enough at pushing enemy builds, and their popularity has increased. We are closely monitoring the statistics of these movement parts and will make additional changes if needed. I'm glad they're I can't say enough. I'm glad they're being a bit more open in these Q&A sessions, even though this is really freaking long. And thank you guys for sticking through this video with me. If you're still here watching this Q&A video. Question, superiority of parts of greater rarity versus less rare parts on low power score, or whatever you might call it, entry barrier. A weapon of high rarity on low power score have limitations due to the power score spent on the weapons themselves and reduced durability and module count limit on the build. Statistically, such builds do not stand out. So they're basically saying, like, people are dropping these seal clubbing, the legendary relic weapons are dropping a way low power score, and the devs are basically saying these builds are really easy to counter. They have no durability, no modules. They're saying get good. Question: significant superiority of weapons that can only be installed in 2 units per build compared to 3 to 4 units of other weapons. The problem of adequately installing 3 to 4 weapons on modules with power nodes. Before it was only Amamori, which was partially compensated by the fin whale. I guess they're forgetting about the inverter. Now we also have the Jackie, which increases damage, but you can't install a weapon on it comfortably if you need to install more than 2. Their answer: although it is easier to place 2 weapons on the power nodes of modules and cabins, weapons that you can have 3 or 4 of also have a number of advantages. For example, if you lose one of your 4 weapons, you will only lose 25% damage. And even less if 2 of your 4 weapons are mounted on a Jackie. While if you lose one of your 2 weapons, you will lose half of your efficiency. So their answer is like, you're losing a lot less when you lose a weapon. Question: advantage of poorly balanced part cabin. The best armor is armor that doesn't get destroyed until the build itself dies, and that's the cabin. If you place your weapons right, they will be under the solid defense of a part of 4,000 to 5,000 or more HP, which dictates a solid and clear advantage for heavy builds. A bit too much in a building game, don't you think? Add a gradual increase in how many damage a cabin takes depending on its HP level. For example, if you lost 30% durability of the cabin, do not count the damage on the structural parts. You should receive an increase in damage on it by 15%, and so on, which will introduce a balancing tool in the use of the constructor and adding parts for the sake of HP. If not for this, why do we need the constructor? Placing the cabin in front of the build has both pros and cons. Just like any other point of placement in the announced changes, we modified Grizzly co-driver, which should reduce efficiency of the front cabin placement. So they actually answered that question by saying like cabins are going to be a little bit less durable anyway with Grizzly. So just wait and see after these balance changes. Question: weakness of shields and other modules. All shields except Atom are a short-lived treat with strong vulnerability to blast damage. These especially hinders the use of Nova and Aegis Prime, which should be good combination if it weren't for one thing: you can't mount them together. Otherwise, you get a powerful debuff for the duration of the shield. Because of this one small problem, Aegis is almost never used. Answer: we will consider improving the Nova cabin, but without changing the interaction with the installed Aegis on the build. Daze is a narrowly focused module and should not be used on most armored cars. On those builds where it is used, efficiency is quite high, so we do not plan to make changes to the Daze. Question: the Devourer's huge advantage in clan war versus other weapons. In every battle you encounter Devourer, it outperforms almost every weapon at once, and there's nothing left of single weapons. If there's a full group of Devourers, there's 0 chance. Answer: we're closely monitoring the statistics of this weapon in different modes. If necessary, we will make changes, and they absolutely will balance the Devourer, guys. It's a brand new weapon. Let people use it, have some fun for the next week or 2, month. They're going to definitely balance that. That's all, guys. That was a massive Q&A session, and that is only part 1. If you are still in this video, I really appreciate you guys watching this video throughout. Thank you guys for all of your support. Join the Discord to join our community. We have giveaways on Sunday's live stream. This Sunday, we're giving away the Treasure Seeker event pass, so stop by our live stream, and I will be live streaming some Clan Wars tomorrow morning as well. So thank you guys for the support, and I will see you in tomorrow's Clan Battle live stream.